Welcome to the One Step Ahead series, part storytelling, part podcast, and entirely a celebration. This project is a way to honor the wise beings and medicines that serve us in creating a life that is aligned with the unique beings we are, and the values that connect us to ourselves, to others, to our precious planet, and energies in the universe. You're invited to share in the intimate conversations that arise when we ponder and explore the questions: what does living in alignment feel like? What does it look like? How do we find our way, and who are the guides that can help us discover and deepen our understanding of ourselves? If you're a curious seeker, if you've known that something about your circumstances is not quite the right fit and wondered, what else is there? This is a place to open, expand, and explore. One step ahead of our past, of where we've been, one step closer to where we want to be, where we're meant to be, finding alignment. Always, still, putting one foot in front of the other. Welcome back, friends, and welcome to those of you who are new to the One Step Ahead series. We are slowly making our way through the autumn season 3. We're still aiming to do 4 this year, and things are going really smoothly, actually. We've got all of our autumn guests lined up, and production is underway. I'm your host, Sheena Wilson. I am a creative being who loves writing and bringing people together and working on fun projects. I used to rattle off a bunch of things about being an instructional designer and a teacher, and I am all of those things too. But first and foremost, I am a curious creative soul who is really excited to be joined today, as often is the case with my co-host, Sabrina Siwiec. And for those of you who don't know, this is going to be an interesting series of introductions to make today. She is an energy healer, a business coach, a counselor, all rolled into one really exquisite practice. She's a sound healer and a mama, also an entrepreneur, fellow sister that way. And we are joined today by Avalon Starlight. Avalon is one of my favorite humans. As you know, I always invite my favorite humans to come and talk with us. Avalon is, I wrote it at the top of my page. I don't think it's the first and foremost thing, but it really, really stands out for me as a writer. She's a 3 times international bestseller. She's an energy healer, a writer, an astrologer. And I'm especially excited because that's where I know Avalon from, is in the realm of doing full moon ceremonies. But you use all of that as a healer to work with entrepreneurs who are also a little bit on the woo side to really heal their energy. And I love this, to call in even bigger levels of abundance for themselves. And so it's really no surprise that we are in conversation together, the 3 of us. I think it's such a beautiful example of alignment and synchronicity. I've got a number of links to share. I will include those in the show notes for people who want to check out Avalon's podcast or free guided meditations on YouTube. I noticed, and I love this, Avalon, that your podcast is on both Spotify and YouTube. I love it when there's a video for that, so folks can look forward to checking those out. And the next thing I've got on my page are my own questions. So I'm going to take a pause and just say welcome to all of you. And thank you so much for being here.
Oh, gee, golly, that was lovely. I'm so excited to be in both of your energies. I do have to say one thing. I am not a full-fledged astrologer as of this moment. I am in the practice of learning the ancient art of astrology. Astrology in itself is such a huge, umbrella of magic. And so I've been studying astrology, but I have never actually got certified in astrology. So I don't want to diminish those who have done all of the work to get accredited with that by utilizing that title when I'm by the end of 2025, I will have that title.
Okay.
That will happen.
Thank you for
And
that.
yes, I am just a student and, recipient of the energy of the cosmos at this point. Yeah.
Well, I love that because I feel like I'm a student of yours already. I also believe in the value of those credentials, especially when people put so much time and effort into earning them. I wear some of those letters myself. And I also know that when you take the formality out of a title, truly, friend, I have learned so much from being in ceremony with you. And I really love that because we don't have to be experts in order to be teachers, right?
100%. Like I would absolutely call myself a cosmic guide. Right?
Love that. I'm going to write that one down.
100%.
I like that title better, to be honest.
Yes,
Mystical. Yeah.
Up as I go. Can I swear? I got a bit of a mouth
absolutely.
on me. So like I'm
Yeah, we're here for it.
okay. I'm
Express
like,
yourself.
Avalon, I feel like you know me well enough to know that there would for sure be swearing on this podcast.
well, I mean, Sheena is the gentlest soul I think I've ever come across ever. So like I'm like, I don't want to be abrasive because sometimes I can be a bit
No,
bold and a little bit like
That's
not
why I'm
at
pretty
all.
team because
Yeah.
I am not those things at all times.
I love that.
I really love the expression on people's faces when they look at me like, I didn't know that you even used those words. I have one girlfriend who says, I love it when you swear.
I bet you it
My
holds weight. It has meaning when you swear,
And
Sheena. Like it's
that's
like bam.
my mom actually taught me once she realized that I wasn't going to be forgetting those words. She taught me to use them carefully. And if I was trying to express myself in a way that a curse word really added the level of emphasis required to get my meaning across, then it was okay. But that was very different than swearing at someone. That was not allowed. And then of course, all of those years of being a classroom teacher and working in corporate and all of that, wearing my best good girl uniform. But yeah, you can bet I pull them out when I need to.
Love that.
I don't think all my years of working in a corporate space really eliminated that from my vocabulary. If anything, I just challenged all of my employers to be like, really, I don't fucking care. It's part of the package, and if you don't like it, then I shall leave.
Gotta be our full expressive selves, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And cheers to the women in the world who do, because it helps show those of us who sometimes stay maybe a little bit too quiet for our own good. Yeah, we need to see women being expressive and clear. Sometimes certain languages just make it crystal clear. Okay, I'm confessing right here and now that a gap that we've noticed in the series is we have had so many beautiful conversations with incredible practitioners, all on the theme of alignment. We've got the incredible Eileen March, who is our in-house flow living witch, I call her, who's been advising us on cyclical living and has really helped craft each of our 4 seasons, 4 parts of the series, so that they align with spring, summer, autumn, and winter. And that all feels really, really good. And Sabrina and I have noticed every time we show up and do the recording for a new season, we're talking about things like, oh my God, cancer season is totally kicking my ass. I'm exhausted, but I'm getting so much done. And then realizing, okay, perhaps and very likely there are listeners who are going, cancer season, shit, that sounds really bad. Like they have no idea what we're talking about. And similarly, I've noticed a lot of people right now really sinking into the Virgo energy, and we've been weaving in elements of the Celtic Wheel of the Year ceremonies and acknowledging those different energetic shifts. And we talk all about the woo and energy. We haven't yet talked about cosmic energy and how powerful and like it can throw us for loops, which, is funny when you think about cosmic energy and the planets feeling like it's sending us for a loop. Totally makes sense. But I would really love if you would help fill this gap a little bit by sharing a little bit about your journey and finding alignment, feeling alignment, appreciating that we're never perfectly aligned. And we do, of course we wobble, and we know we're on the right track when we start feeling like we're going straight for a little bit. How are we doing all of this with not only our energy bodies in our human form, but also in conjunction with so many mighty, mighty universe, I wanted to say universal, but you know what I mean? Those really big forces.
Yeah, that's a really broad, big question. So I'm just gonna like dilute it into what this has meant for me. So like when I think about nature, I think about as above, so below, right? And as human beings, we understand nature as being the rocks and the birds and the trees and the animals and the grass and Mama Gaia. But at the same time, we see all of this stuff on the earth in front of us as being sentient, right? As having an awareness. And the thing is that the planets also are sentient and they also are part of nature. And we're just so focused on looking down that we often forget to look up. And so what started me on my journey of like really understanding like how we're impacted by these energies is that I recognized that I was sensitive. I was sensitive to the moons. And I would know when a moon was happening, even if I didn't have the like hadn't written it down. I'd be like, oh God, today's got to be a full moon. Today's got to be a full moon. Everything feels crazy. Like the dogs running around, the kids are just like they're chaotic, right? Like something's got to go on. It's got to be a full moon. And this was like 8, 9 years ago, right? And so I recognized that I was being influenced by an energy that was coming from above. And I started to recognize that these energies were guides. They were opportunities, they were mentors, they were teachers. And so I started to think about that. Like I was going to be influenced by them anyway. And if I was unconscious about those influences, then I would question what I was going through, right? I'd be like, oh my God, I'm falling apart. Things are happening. Oh my God, this is the worst. And then I would almost like have material to like almost like harm myself in a way with negative thoughts or negative feelings about what I was experiencing. And so I recognized that if I became aware of what the cosmic energy was, I could actually allow that energy to steer my healing, right? Because at any point, what's happening in the cosmos, it offers us a really clear direction. It's like a spotlight, like a flashlight that says, hey, everybody, right now, what you're going to be experiencing is really questioning where you stand, because we just finished the new moon solar eclipse in Libra yesterday. You're going to be like really questioning and releasing anything that is not aligned with who you are as a human in community. So if you start to notice you're leaking energy in all of these different places and you're questioning, like, am I in the right job? Am I in the right relationships? What's going on with my family? How do I like feel about all of these people in my life? That's exactly what you're supposed to be going through at this time, right? And so when you start to understand that the universe is offering you, like, 'cause healing is a big thing, right? And it's really broad. And like, where do we start and where do we go and what should we focus on and how do we move through the next thing and the next thing? Well, the cosmos is like, let me tell you, you're going to move through this whether you like it or not, and it's going to happen whether you like it or not. So why don't you actually utilize this energy, place your attention and focus on it, do the work in this, and then we'll cycle back later when we get back to it, but we'll move on after that. And yeah, it's going to be uncomfortable in this, but once you get through this, that gets healed. Now we move, right? So I found that once I started to use this energy, I could actually feel much stronger and more in alignment. I know that's a big word on this podcast, with who I was and where I was going. And so that's kind of what got me into kind of following what was happening astrologically. It just became like the fastest and easiest way to understand where to place my attention and focus on my own journey, right? And
Thank
by the
you.
way, the cosmos is a big field. And just to give everybody, like, it's not like you wake up. So I remember when in the beginning it would be like, for this year, I'm just going to focus on new moons and full moons. And for an entire year, I devoted myself to learning the energy of the moons, right? Then the next year it was like, okay, this year I'm going to learn the energy of the signs of the zodiac. and how they influence the moon, right? And then you spend an entire year feeling into what that energy looks and feels like, right? And then it's an evolution. I think that that's why I think it's such a profound practice, astrology. And as much as I want to eventually have that as like something, it's not there because it's such an alchemical process to understand each of these as a sentient being. And I really want to sit with each of them. I want to be with each of the planets. I want to nurture my relationship with them and then, adopt that whole quality of being able to share it from a different perspective.
Mm.
I appreciate you explaining how you broke it down, because as I'm listening to you talk about your exploration of how the energy affects you, I'm thinking, fuck, I'm exhausted already. Like, just building my own level of self-awareness, not even necessarily integrating all of the things that are happening astrologically and, healing all the things that I need to heal and reprogramming all the things I need to reprogram. And I'm thinking, I can't even touch this. I'm exhausted thinking about it. So to hear you say that, you took it piece by piece and broke it down over a 12-month period gives me some solace that it is a process as per, usual. I know this, but hearing you break it down that way was helpful.
Yeah.
I do the same thing when I started to read chakras and made chakras like such an influential part of my life. I started to do a chakra a year. So I gave it an entire year to an entire chakra and healing it and working through it and understanding it and watching as you navigate that full expression of it. I'm in throat chakra year now, which is really great. Look, I'm on your podcast in throat chakra year and learning how to speak my soul's work out into the world, right? Because as energy healers and as those who maybe work in an industry that most people don't know how to make tangible, learning how to vocalize it and speak about it in a way that is cohesive and people can pick up and understand was what my challenge for this year has been all year. Because we used to be like, people would be like, what do you do? I'm an energy healer. What's that? Oh, that thing I do. What
It's the
do you
voodoo
mean?
magic thing.
Yeah. Whereas now I know that I help people utilize the energies of what's happening in the cosmos as a guide to actually going within, because the whole cosmos lives within us, right? We are the energy of the entire earth and the entire sky within. So when we understand how to translate that within ourselves and use it to heal ourselves, we can actually influence how quickly we can move through different things in our lives.
I am just getting so excited right now, and light bulbs going off all over the place, because without even realizing it, we're kind of doing some baby steps with that. I met Avalon through Kyla Gagnon and participating in full moon ceremony, meditation, journaling, really beautiful ceremonies. Sabrina, I know you've been in some of those sessions as well. And that helped me get more tuned into the moon, which helped me realize that as I move through perimenopause, that the moon is actually a more accurate way for me to track energetically my cycle. And the more I became tuned into that, the more I started getting really curious about the different energies of the 4 seasons that we have here in North America. So Sabrina, friend, without even realizing it, we're taking some of these really baby steps, because this year we've been really focused on the seasons and those energetic shifts. And we've both dipped our toes in a little bit to, okay, well, what's this wheel of the year, the Celtic calendar I keep hearing people speaking about, Eileen in particular. And the first step about learning something is that curiosity. There's something about it. And it's not that we're diving headfirst into it, but okay, I'm curious about this in this moment. It'll be interesting to see if that comes back and what I might build on as far as gentle learning goes. So to think that we can keep up leveling that is really, really cool, because I hadn't actually, for me, it's about being able to ride the wave. Whereas Avalon, I'm picturing me holding on to a paddleboard for dear life going over the waves. Whereas what you described makes me think of like standing up, doing the work, being present and riding the waves, which Well, I have to say, it sounds kind of dreamy. I like to think now that I'm going in that direction, but I had never really dawned on me that we could be working with it in even more thoughtful ways.
Just because I know the energies doesn't mean I'm not holding onto my paddleboard for dear life. Like, it doesn't mean that what is being brought
Oh,
up.
illusion shattered.
I know, because I mean, we all know healing is messy and it's meant to be messy and we're meant to feel it to heal it. And so, like, I've got to tell you, going from Mercury retrograde into this eclipse season, I am like coming up for breath after September. September was just like, seriously, is that what we all had to go through in order to get to the other side of September? So I go through it just as much as everybody else. The difference is that I understand exactly why I'm going through it and what the outcome that I'm looking for, because it's like, okay, I know that I'm willing. It's like, spirit, okay, I'm in. Take me, right? Take me to where I need to go. Show me the patterns that I've been holding on to. This is a huge time for letting go. It's not just because of this eclipse, but you're talking about autumn, right? Like the leaves fall every year in autumn. We are meant to be letting go in the autumn, right? So it's like, great. Nobody wants to do that. Like, that's not comfortable. But at the same time, what is your willingness to surrender to the experience of seeing what you have to be willing to let go, right? Because sometimes, and I don't know about you guys, but sometimes some of my patterns in my programs, I'm pretty attached to them, right? So I'm clinging to them. Like, I'm like, not that one. This has been my safety for so long. You can't take that one. And then you recognize it's not serving you and you have to let it go. But that process for me, even sometimes, is hanging on to my paddleboard for dear life.
I
Hmm.
appreciate you clarifying that.
I wish I could be like that witch
I
standing
I I
holding the
tend to
seas and the winds. I mean, like,
I'm quick to idealize, which is something that I think is really sweet, but it's not the most practical. And you're absolutely right. Having some realistic expectations as we do this work makes it so much easier, well, and understanding the energies that we're working with to hold ourselves with self-compassion and curiosity, right? Yeah, this kind of isn't what I would be choosing right now, and this is how it is right now. So can we be fascinated and instead of frustrated? Can we be curious instead of anxious or nervous? And know that this too is temporary.
and truly, and this is my belief, that the more we surrender to the discomfort and the more we are willing to sit in the muck, because it is mucky sometimes, if you are just going to let go and just sit where you are, because where you are is where you are, regardless of whether it's a highlight reel or it's gross and stinky. And there's a celebration of the gross and stinky, because oftentimes when you come out of those moments, those transformational moments, you are eclipsing, like eclipse is just such a prominent word right now, out of something, right? Like I think of the caterpillar that turns to goo 7,000 times. That's an exaggeration before it becomes a butterfly. It builds itself up, right? And then it just completely takes itself, disintegrates itself. That's the word. And then it builds itself up in the cocoon and then it disintegrates, and it does it over and over and over and over again, right? And then it becomes a butterfly. It's not like it just goes into the chrysalis and is like, look, look how easy it was to become a butterfly. Look. So
Yeah,
like,
no pain at all.
oh no, right? So like, I don't know. For me, in healing and in energy work and everything, I invite the hard. I invite the challenge. I invite, because I think that that's how we don't repress what we're experiencing. I don't want to be in a good place if I'm not meant to be in a good place. I want to be in grief if grief is knocking on my door. I want to be in frustration if frustration's knocking on my door. I want to be in anger. But I also love that, because then when I'm letting myself feel those what we I don't think we can, I'm using air quotes. I don't know if anyone's listening to this on like that. These are so dense and these are negative emotions. I don't think any emotion is negative. I don't think anyone is bad. I think they're all valuable and important and guiding us in where we are. And so to me, the fast track isn't just, using the cosmic, it's like if I'm meant to be in the muck, like if eclipse season is like you're going to sit in this pile of poopy pants and look at this pattern, that I'm going to sit in that pile of poopy pants and I'm going to be like, I didn't want to see that. I didn't want to
Mm.
see that, I have urgency. I do not like being told no. That was my pattern, by the way, over the eclipse. We went for an apartment and we didn't get it. And all the material that came up from that,
Mm.
right? Like it was this person's fault, it's that person's fault. I just like, how could they say no? Blah, blah, blah. And you're like, wow, look at that. Look at you. Look at you being wildly uncomfortable and like wanting it right now, right? And it's like that urge, it has to happen, it has to happen. And I'm like, that's an old pattern of mine to not just be okay with the no.
Mm.
And it's been fun and uncomfortable to be willing to face that and look at it as a shadow aspect of myself, because I think shadows are just the parts of ourselves that we need to bring into the light. But
Mm.
we're in the descent into the darkness. That's what I call autumn, from the equinox to the winter solstice. It's like, this is the descent into the darkness. This is where we're meant to be finding our shadows and playing with them and loving them. And then
That's so
after,
fun, Avalon, when you say it that way. It sounds so inviting.
I know.
Can you speak to something for me? So I hear this often from clients who are struggling with understanding what it is to sit with their pain, sit with their discomfort,
Thank you.
right? Of course, the programming is, well, that's a bad feeling, it needs to go. And a lot of people, reading things on the internet, exploring reels, different content, are like, okay, well, if I just journal about this, it's going to go away, right? If I'm going to do this thing, it's going to go away. It's like a formula. And so can you speak to, from your perspective, what it actually means to sit in it?
yeah, for my perspective is like once I enter the portal, so we'll just use like September 2nd, I'll use as an example as a portal because that's the day I went to look at the house. Right? I entered a portal of really having to look at two things that came up for me. One was the urgency, right? If I want it right now, it should happen right now. And anything that doesn't happen my way, I feel like a child that wants to have a temper tantrum. This is not my best quality, but it was right there. The second thing that came up is I'm working really hard to be able to get myself into a new place, a place that I'm really excited about. And I felt like I failed. I felt like I couldn't do it. I had been working this hard. I got that no, and I wanted to really self-flagellate myself and really make it personal, right? Because as humans, what we want to do is make everything personal. Every no, everything is like that person who is, some stranger, they're out to get me. They saw this. So now I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough, I'm not whatever, right? So that experience for me on September 2nd really brought up that I'm not enough, right? No matter what I'm doing, it's not good enough. And so that's a really, really precious part of who I am. So I wanted to actually converse with, so like when I find these parts of myself or these areas, I kind of want to sit with them for a moment so I understand where they're coming from, what they want to say in the moment of what I'm experiencing. And so I often will just go for different walks and I sit with that, right? I will stay in the discomfort. Like I was in the discomfort of from September 2nd and probably until today. And now it's October 3rd. I was never, and when I'm in the muck, I choose to just be in that kind of like, you can think of it as gloomy or like heavy or gray. Because I've been doing this for so long, I understand that nothing that I am experiencing is changing my capacity to manifest what I want. Okay. So I can go through experiencing what I need to experience and know and trust that the universe isn't going, wow, that girl is sitting in the muck. We need to abort helping her in every way to achieve her goals and her dreams. She doesn't need that right now. That's not what's happening. Every time I'm willing to sit with my emotion for whatever length of time that may be, like I was in grief for a year and a half, 2 years, not that long ago. And I just, again, walked into that portal. Grief knocked on my door. I opened the door and I said, I'm willing to feel. Because when you introduce grief for the first time, chances are you're not just going to experience the grief of the present moment. If you really invite her in, she's gonna process through like a bunch of different griefs for you, which is really great. I know I'm going to make it sound because everything after that has allowed me to feel much deeper. Grief is often the hardest one to invite in. Right? So like even though September felt like, oh, Like this is so heavy. This is so hard. I had my best financial month. We actually got a house of our dreams at, a price that was even better, right? Because you always have to understand that the universe is working with you. And so I understand at a deeper level that that no was making space for a better yes. The parts of me that were challenged by that, those are the parts of me that need the love from me the most. And I don't want to fast forward through accepting those parts of me and honoring and finding them just as sacred as the parts of me that can come into and be like, this is the greatest month and this is, this and that. Like we're meant to hold the duality and the spectrum of emotion is so beautiful. I don't want to narrow myself down to only experiencing the ones that are deemed positive because to me, the ones over here are just as positive and because they offer a different level of experience of life. And for me, I can't not allow them to take as much space and time as they need. And when you're in the practice, and this is again what I truly believe, when you're in the practice of allowing that, you recognize that just because you're feeling angry or frustrated or sad or, whatever that feeling is, the universe is not going to let you fall on your buttocks. The universe isn't going to just turn its back on you and say, oh, well, you're low, so you're at a frequency of not receiving. That's not true. You've got to trust that you've done the work, that you've created the space, and what you're doing in that moment of sitting in that moment, in that feeling, is actually making you more equipped to receive more in the long run.
Mm.
Right? Because I truly believe we unpack energy within ourselves and then we get to choose what we want to invite in from that space. But yeah, it can feel really deep. And it's again, we talk about cycles, we talk about everything, right? Everything is cyclical, right? We have ebbs and flows, highs and lows. So we can't just appreciate the highs. We have to sit in the lows too. And we just be like, damn it, I'm in a low right now. And that's okay. I won't be here forever. Did that answer your question, Sabrina?
It was a really lovely explanation. Thank you. And I feel like because of this negative connotation that comes with emotion, people feel like if we're sitting in grief, that it has to be debilitating. Like it's like my life has to be paused. I can't function because I'm feeling these hard feelings. And so we avoid it.
I would suggest that what we avoid is a relationship with our bodies. I think that we have become really equipped at being a logical species. And women have become really equipped with being a logical species, and we are a feeling species. And this is for AFABs, this is transgender, this is for anyone who associates with being feminine. We are meant to be the emoters. That is our vibrational experience that we bring into this world. So, and it doesn't even have to be geared to a day. Like we're meant to be expressing from the time we wake up to the time we go to bed. And we can go through cycles of 7 different emotions in a day. Heck, in an hour. Like,
And I'm like, I probably do 70. What?
I know, right? Like that's our experience of the world. That's our gift. That is such a joy to be able to honor that. So it's going from being cerebral to understanding that what we're doing is nourishing the body. So that grief is more about learning, okay, when I'm sad, what types of things does my body require to support her? Oh, well, she wants to go to bed earlier and she wants to say no to more plans. And maybe she eats a bit more junk. That's okay. You'll get it back, right? Like, none of this to me should be used as punishment for or ammunition for our brains because women tend to be really hard on themselves, right? So the minute we get out of like flow or being in our routine or doing these things, and grief has a habit of being like, sorry, that routine you were on, I don't really feel that that's supporting us right now. And so we'll use that as ammunition to be like, I'm not doing the things that are required for me to be able to push my business forward or to be a better person or to do this or do that. And my
Mm-hmm.
invitation to everybody is like, no, that's a moment to say, what does my body need? How can I nourish her? What would be sacred? What rituals can I shift or change to adapt to where I am?
Beautiful.
All of
Thank
this is raising for me the the reminder that to befriend our body, we first have to befriend ourselves. And I think certainly in my own case, I'm much more skillful now at being with emotion as it arises and it's here and it passes away. There can be so much noise around giving ourselves permission not to just to express, like that's a whole other level of permission, but even permission to acknowledge the feelings that are with us if they are anything other than uplifting. And I think a lot of programming and noise comes into it. And so sadness can hit like a punch to the gut. And instead of tending to that, instead of listening to or being able to even hear maybe the voice in our head that says, oh, that really hurts, and giving her some love. Instead, there are messages of, there isn't time for this, get yourself together. You're too emotional. All of these different old messages that for many of us, sadly, and particularly as women, have been reinforced time and time again. And when we're trying to do our best to make a go of it as the world gets faster and faster, there's even less spaciousness to notice the thoughts. What are the thoughts? Where are they coming from? Whose voice is this? Is it actually serving me in this moment? And we can even go farther back to that, to saying, wow, sadness is here. This is really important to pay attention to. We just want it to go away. We forget it's there. We try to numb it. We distract ourselves. All like there's so much noise around the being with your emotions. And I would like to offer that the easiest way to be with them is to be still and ask, what is here right now? How does this feel in my heart? How does this feel in my body? And know that it will often be very uncomfortable, but the practice is to dip your toe in, to practice being with whatever is there right now. And that can be really scary, which is why, and I know Sabrina and I have talked about this, why it is so critical that we continue to nurture relationships where we genuinely feel we can tend to and rely on one another as we heal and grow, right?
Wonderful.
The skillful practitioners to be our guides through that, to remind us that we are okay, even if at times when we're sitting with it, it really doesn't feel okay.
I don't know where in our evolution we were taught that not feeling okay was not okay.
As soon as it started inconveniencing the patriarchy, had to just throw in something about that.
Something about patriarchy and all
They're
this.
old messages, but the more we express, the more power, the more vibrant energy goes out into the world. And it is very deliberate and strategic that we're programmed to rein that shit in and to stay quiet and to stay small, because when we're not, it inconveniences those who are in power.
Well, and it
And
really
rant
it affects the level of productivity that we have.
and that.
And that's why I say there, I think there's some programming around that, because it's like, oh, I have this feeling, I'm in grief, I'm sad, I'm upset, I'm uncomfortable. And maybe I'm not going to be able to operate optimally or as efficiently as I have in the past, because I'm in the middle of this. I'm in the muck, I'm processing. And that's not convenient for all those big corporations out there who need you to really be that cog in the wheel that continues on the growth that they so desire.
Isn't that the funniest thing? But the perspective I have is that like I can't control what my manager thinks or my boss or all I can control is what I'm choosing to experience in that moment. And first of all, Sheena, you spoke so beautifully about that, like it being a practice. No truer words have ever been spoken. I don't think we ever enter into anything, whether it's a new job, new relationship, knowing what we're doing. I don't think we ever fully know what we're doing in anything in life. We are constantly in the practice. And one of the things you spoke about at the very beginning was just curiosity in itself, right? Like just being willing to be curious. And the perspective that I have, Sabrina, that you touched on there is it does to me, it doesn't matter what somebody else wants my performance to be. And I know that as high achievers, sometimes we look at that as being, this is the ideal and this is the standard that I'm supposed to be achieving. But again, I have done a lot of work to get to a place where my standard is, did I do my best today?
Mm-hmm.
That's it. Like, is my best getting out of bed today? Oh, good. You did great. Good job, me, right? Like, if I can go to bed at the end of the day and lay my head on the pillow and say, that was my best, and each day my best will look, different. We're talking about cycles. We're talking about emotions. We're talking about all those different things that influence us all the time. Like, what if our standard was just doing that day's best?
I love that. Yeah. And one of the questions I often ask is, did I honor my body today?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because for me, that is my best. For me, that means I have really done a good job of eliminating all of my stories and my programs that I should do something this way or have to do something this way. And I check in with myself enough to go, okay, did I move it in a way that felt really good for my body today? Did I nourish myself in a way that felt good in the moment? And maybe that was half a bag of chips. That's okay. Right? But it's like that, if that's my best for the day, I know that I honored what I needed in those moments. And that's a really good, healthy place to be for me.
I concur. I concur because again, everybody has a vice, and I love that you say yours. Mine is like Haagen-Dazs, peanut butter and chocolate ice cream. Like the day that I need that, I need that. And I have a saying that I say, and that's like I dip low before I grow. And the reason I say I dip low before I grow is that in order for me to shift into that next version of myself, I understand that I have to grieve the version of me that brought me to this moment, and I have to be willing to release her. And that's a grief, right? And so that dipping low before I grow is like, that's that nourishment. Like, oh, sweet soul. I know what I'm moving tomorrow when we wake up. We're going to expand into that next version of ourselves. But what do you need today? Oh, you want to watch cheesy TV and eat a pint of ice cream for dinner? Absolutely. That is what you want to like be released. You get that, right? That's exactly how it's going to be for tonight.
It's such a theme with many of the entrepreneurial, maybe even all of them, women that I've been fortunate enough to connect with is we're doing things our way because we have come to a place of realizing that the greater priority is being able to tend to what we need to be well, as opposed to what we need to do to earn the paycheck. And yeah, we need to survive financially, but surviving financially and not being able to tend to ourselves is a slow, painful death. That's why I left government. Was I made a very specific choice that I was no longer going to show up for a work environment. Oh, the throat chakra, talking about important stuff. It was not an easy choice. It was one of the most difficult choices I've ever made. However, I knew I could not be well in that environment because my best was continually judged and used against me in that environment. And not like in a horrible, malicious way, but there are performance reviews. And when you're not measuring what the standards are, you're going to hear about it. And it's really hard not to, it was for me impossible in that environment, not to internalize that as I am not good enough, I am not fast enough, which then would lead to I am not worthy to be in this. Okay, so like it goes on and on down just a negative spiral. There's no bright spot at the end of that one. And so to get to a place of recognizing that, and then to prioritize one's well-being in order to create a life that feels juicy and delicious at least half the time. But there's so much to it. So to hear you speak about this in such a skillful way, and I think to look around the room and see that we're all doing this to varying different degrees and practicing what it is to tend to ourselves while also building a business, being moms, showing up, doing all of these things. We're not saying pack it in, although if you could pack it in for a while and just sink into tending to getting to know yourself and tending to those parts of you that are calling out for the love, it would be revolutionary. Like if we could imagine a government program where you could apply for the grant to take a leave of absence from work and just do self-development with all of the teachers and practitioners and healers that were like here for you, and just do that work and then come back and say, oh, this is what I'd actually like for my life.
Well, I believe that we're actually in a period of time where having that intention isn't so far-fetched anymore.
Mhm.
Sheena, I really believe that. Like, I think that the scales are tipping. I think that the awareness of the patriarchy has now really become quite mainstream, like it's everywhere. And I think now's the time where we start to honor, like for me, I can't blame the patriarchy anymore. Like I really can't, because I'm with a husband who is doing his work and showing up
Mm.
and, really representing the masculine in a really soft and tender and gentle way. And was it easy? No, he was a dick in the beginning sometimes because he was so connected to an old model, right? But the more that he witnessed and was aware, he shifted and changed. And I have a day job as well as doing the energy healing work, and I'm a personal trainer, and I see trainers that are men who are learning about menopause. Right? Because they truly believe that they need to know this so that they can support their female clients better. And so I see the shift happening. So I don't want to damn all men because there are so many who are waking up and really being in that front line of defense to change the vibrational energy and bring it to a place where healing is more mainstream and an opportunity, like potentially even the government offering leaves of absence for healing. Like I can see that. I can. And I think the more of us that hold that intention, we are more powerful holding that intention than we are kind of like going like
Yeah,
I
yeah.
agree with you there. I think, it's one thing to call it out and consistently call it out, but it's another to recognize that in order for us to make a shift, as you pointed out, and continue making the shift, because it has already started, that we also need to support men in that journey. We can't just like bang them on the head and say, just fix your fucking shit, because they don't understand, some of them, right? Some of them don't understand. And the ones who are open are going to need women to support them walking through that journey. Like we can only be the best humans as we walk through figuring out the dynamics of masculine and feminine together. We can't do it separate.
No, no. And like the patience, right? There's patience on both sides because, my husband, when he started to recognize the things that he was doing unconsciously, because I would be like, honey, did you just recognize that you said no to me before you even went on to tell me what was happening? Like it would be like, da 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 da, and I'd say something, he'd say no, and then he would go on, and I'm like, time out. Time out. Did you recognize that you just said no? And then when I was around his mom and his dad, I would recognize his dad would do it. So it wasn't even conscious for him. It was something that he witnessed and he picked up that he then just adopted as a behavior, right? And he can see that now, but it took a bit to be willing, right? Because I think, and this is just my own personal opinion, we're so quick to be in relationships and say, oh, it's not working. This is too hard, or this is too much, or it's not happening fast enough. And believe me, if a relationship is toxic, it's toxic. Get the fuck out, right? Like, this is not about toxic. This is about understanding that it's two people coming together with a lot of trauma. Like, we don't enter a relationship without understanding that everything that has happened to you in the past is going to be a part of your relationship. And then being willing to unpack that together. And that is a slow, sometimes agonizing process in order to support that masculine. For me, like, my husband and I have been together 12 years in total, married 9. Nah. Again, I feel like I'm the negative Nancy here. Like, it's not all been sunshine, rainbows, and butterflies. There has been times where I'm like, what is this? What is this? Am I? And in the beginning, my trauma, fight or flight, my answer was always to leave. Right. And now my husband has gone through a bit of a dip and a struggle. And now I can say that there's no way in hell that I would leave this man while he is going through something like this. This is a moment where we lean in. This is a moment where if he's in the muck, I'm actually going to not only sit in my own muck, I'm going to sit in his muck with him. Right. Like, he doesn't have to sit in the muck. I'm still going to hold the candle and the flame to what's possible. But he gets to sit in his muck as long as he needs to. And if that's longer than a month, like my muck was, then he gets to sit in the muck, right? For whatever transformation that is required for his next evolution. But I think sometimes we get caught in the masculine has to be this or the feminine has to be that. And it's like, it's a partnership first and foremost. And to me, partnership is like a sacred union. And it's just as messy. It's just as much, right? Of like going through, and it's patience. It is patience.
Patience and compassion. I think of all of those as growing pains. Yeah, in our relationship, we always come out the other side of it with a deeper appreciation for each other and our relationship. And we know that it gets sometimes real messy in the middle, but you don't, you just, you know you're going to stay. And as long as you're both going to stay and you trust that, then you can figure out how you're going to navigate it.
I think it's the moment you trust that you're both going to stay.
Yeah.
And both people understand and can sink into the safety of knowing that you're both going to stay, that you really let yourself open up to what is possible with your healing. Because if you're always thinking, oh my God, if I don't do this or if I don't do that, they're going to leave me, blah, 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 then you're always on edge, right? Like, it's that moment you're like, I'm committed to this relationship. I don't need it to be perfect. It can be messy. We can go a month without having any intimacy and nothing is wrong with our relationship, right? We are just experiencing life together. And I think life is gorgeous and it is magical and it is brilliant and it is so diverse, right? Like, I don't want to wake up and feel the same every day. I don't want to always be happy. I have no problem with, and to just shine a light, just an umbrella here. I have had to lose basically everything in my life to get here. And I'm not saying everybody has, but I have lost everything that I have ever built in order to be absolutely enthralled with where I am. Because when all you have left is you and yourself and what you stand for and what you choose for yourself, it's such a beautiful experience. So no matter where you are in your path, you could be like bringing in millions of dollars, or you could be really struggling right now. Everything is exactly divinely orchestrated for your highest good and for you to become that beautiful essence of spirit flowing through you and through your heart to support others.
Preach, sister.
So beautifully said.
Yeah. Aware of time. See, I told you, time goes fast. We could keep going. We could keep going. We have a couple of things. So cannot sign off without asking. I can't see over your shoulder,
it's there.
sweet friend. Would you please share what's on your whiteboard today?
I can. And it feels like I just have been really good at tuning into exactly what's going to happen during our conversations, because we touched on this earlier and it just feels so in alignment. So I wrote a quote today and it says, to celebrate where you are now while holding space for your pain and fear is to embody your truest self.
Bam.
That's like a perfect summarizing statement.
I'm like, intuition much there, Sabrina?
Oh, this is a good game. I like this.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
I know. So,
Thank you.
so perfect.
It
Yeah.
was. That's everything. That encapsulated our whole conversation in one quote.
One
Yeah.
sentence.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Done.
I would just tack on to the end with a gentle reminder that we're riding the waves.
Mm.
And it's so funny because as soon as I say that, it's like this whole other scene of, sometimes just floating on top. Other times it's a whole wild ride. Trust it and don't judge it. Just hold space for it. And yeah, and be curious always.
And it's a practice, like you said.
Yeah. Yeah.
So true.
Is there anything either of you might like to add or share before we wind down our call this afternoon?
I just
I'm
think,
grateful. I'm grateful for you being here, Avalon. This was a really lovely conversation. It felt like it was just such a different energy to some of the things that we've spoke about in the past with other guests. And yeah, I know we only have one season left, but I really want you to come back.
oh, I would love to come back. Oh, especially in winter. Do I get to?
I know I was just
Oh,
thinking of like, oh, can we do like a winter solstice episode?
my God, I would be like, oh, that would be
Ooh.
so dreamy. Because
You
it actually
know,
is dreamy. Because that's actually when we're the most intuitive and aligned with our most inner like capacity to tune into alternate realms of energy.
well, I can't say no to any part of that. So I will get the ball rolling. And truth be told, had we realized, I would have been asking you, Avalon, to please be a seasonal cosmic guide for us because I don't know about you two, but well, Avalon, you spoke to this. I can be feeling all kinds of wonky. And when somebody says, oh, yeah, Mercury in retrograde or solstice or not solstice, eclipse, or it's like, oh, okay. Okay, Sheen. It just gives a little bit more ease to be with it. And how sweet would it be to have a little bit of an idea what's going on for each of our seasons as we're moving towards them?
I
This
am
project
so
isn't going
game.
to be over at the end of the winter either. I've got so many ideas. It's not going to be the same as what it is now, but I'm really excited for Sabrina and I to talk about some of that. This has been incredible. This has been so good.
Oh, I am so grateful to both of you. Like, I'm just so honored to for the invitation and the
Oh,
opportunity and to share space with you guys and whoever's listening. It is such a gift. I look at these moments of again being so sacred and just my heart is so full. I love you guys and I'm just honored. So thank you.
oh, and we love you. Thank you to everyone who's been listening. I will include all of the good links to find more of Avalon and ooh, I think she's going to come back. So exciting. Mwah. Thank you all and very best wishes.